Welcome back, everybody. Culture Punch Podcast. Your host, Wall Street here. Hope everybody's doing good. Today's going to be a little bit more serious of a podcast. I'm going to jump into that. But before I do that, I just want to make sure you guys are checking out the affiliate link down listed below, which is Instacart. Instacart is a grocery delivery service. Take care of you guys on your first purchases of over $35. They help you out. It also gives a kickback to the podcast if you guys go check them out. So continue to do so. We appreciate really just your support. Give us a thumbs up on any kind of social media platform. Anything you listen on, go ahead and like or share with your friends. That's really all that matters. You know, this podcast doesn't really make anything off of those affiliate links, but it's nice to have someone in your corner, and it's nice to point you guys in a direction if you guys are looking for something, especially during the COVID-19, something that can help you guys out with delivery services so you don't have to go to the grocery store. You know, they pick up, they'll deliver it for you. They got fresh produce. That's one of the things that I enjoy. So, you know, go check them out. But like I said, it's going to be one that's a little bit more serious. And I wouldn't be doing this podcast, you guys, and most importantly myself, any justice if I didn't touch on this. Initially, when I saw this, I wasn't going to touch on it. To me, I felt like people, you know, were being critical. And I figured it was probably for views and attention. Then it just kept coming up. The more I saw it, the more I thought to myself, why are so many people trashing this one person? So then I started to do a little bit of research, and I mean a little bit of research, okay? Because it didn't take me long. In minutes, I started to see what people were talking about. And like I said at the beginning, I didn't want to touch on it initially. And of course, here we are. Lily Singh. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Lily Singh. YouTuber, late night show host, and comedian, I guess. I don't know. You be the judge if you haven't seen her. She got famous by making YouTube videos back in 2011, and she gained a following. She gained a following pretty quick. Her videos are mostly skits, you know, of women empowerment, her comedy and awareness, I guess. She's a big supporter of women's rights and women in general. She's a pioneer. If you ask me, she's a pioneer. And I say she's a pioneer. Not only was she the first Indian person to host a late night show, so I didn't mention that she was Indian. She's from Canada, but her background is of Indian descent. But so not only is she the first Indian person to host a late night talk show, but she's also the first woman to do it. So that, to me, that's impressive. You know, I don't like bashing people who've done something, because these stories to me are phenomenal. They're great. I love hearing stories like this because it gives hope to so many people out there, so many children out there, boys, girls, white people, and everyone else, of course. That's the kind of humor that she has, but multiply that times like 100. You know, I'm all about making fun of things and good fun, because I believe for the most part, if things are done in good taste, nothing is off limits. Lily, on the other hand, appeals to one demographic, and that's women, and only women. And she stands for empowering women, which is fine. You know, there's a lot of movements out there, and for those of you listening, if you're not sure where we stand with that, you know, I believe that women can do everything men can do. You know, everything takes practice, obviously. You know, if you're doing something physical, men train for it. Women can do the same thing. If it takes something mental, just study. Which, you know, in my opinion, you know, women are smart. I don't know. Maybe there's a lot of guys that don't agree with me, but I think that's just the case. And I think it's because they just have a tendency to be able to focus more. And we don't. Or they just pick up on things a lot faster, you know? But whatever it is, that's just how I've always felt. But like I said, nothing's off limits if you do it in good fun. And appealing to women only, that to me is a little crazy. The empowerment is fine. But I say that because in order for her to do so, she feels the need to put men down in the process. So imagine you're trying to accomplish something, but you're not doing it the right way, in my opinion, because your message entirely is about equality, but you're putting down the opposite gender in order to bring women up. That doesn't make any sense to me. So instead of just telling her story, which is great on its own, again, I know she's born in Canada, but she's of Indian descent. She's the first Indian person to host a talk show Why do I keep saying that? But not just that, but among that, she's the only female that's ever done it and currently obviously doing it. So she's up there with the likes of James Corden, Jimmy Fallon, and those guys. Jimmy Kimmel, I like Jimmy Kimmel. I didn't want to skip over him. But she puts men down and by trying to bring women up. And I've never agreed with the notion that says in order to be heard or successful, you have to bash your competition. And that's the vibe I get from her actions and the things that she says. The crazy thing is that things won't begin to change until we stop looking at each other in that way and look at each other as what we are, and that's human beings. And like I mentioned earlier, I believe women are just as capable to do things men do. And in some instances, even better. I've mentioned that. I feel like women are just smarter for whatever reason. And I don't think Lily understands that little girls around the world are listening, or are going to be listening, and they're going to start hating boys. Because why wouldn't they? If your main demographic is women and you know, little girl, so let me rewind and let me tell you why I say little girls. I say little girls because if you watch her YouTube, that's how she got famous. The content she produces is more geared towards teenagers. And I believe that her success was due to those teenagers. Now, J. Cole said something really great on the song 1985, where he's trying to coach Lil Pump into understanding what he's trying to say to this young generation, which is what happens when those kids grow up. Are you going to have the same kind of impact? And you really do got to think about that. Her comedy, to me, it's not comedy and it's not funny. Comedy, again, is all about it's about the couple things: the content, how you deliver that content, and how you connect with your audience. Again, she's had luck connecting with people on YouTube, but then you take that into talk show and a late night talk show, and now you have a different demographic that's watching. And so her comedy of pretty much always, she mentions white people a lot in terms of like, you know, white people are angry, white people are this, and white people are that. And I'll get into that in a minute, but you take that into NBC, which, come on, I'm pretty sure that the people who run NBC are all white men, probably. You know, she mentioned something on her show about she's teaching them differently or whatever to view things and to think differently, which is great. You have that platform, so why not do that? But in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I'd love to hear yours, but I think that she's a bad representation of women's rights and equality, because there are activists out there that fight so hard to really for equal pay and respect and all that. A lot of men say it all the time. What do we say? Sometimes the most important thing to us is respect, more than a lot of things. And that's true. If someone respects you, you feel some type of way. Women just want that same thing. And so as far as the movement goes and the awareness, come on, like we got to do our part. And I believe that there's men out there that see it for what it is, which is an honest thing and something that is human beings is only fair, right? And should be. You know, we're living in prehistoric times by looking at things or viewing things differently. Everyone has their views, of course, but I just don't see how you can treat another human being differently than another, whether they're male or female. Now, you take Lily Singh, who believes that women are, this is the vibe I get, women are greater than men. And I'm going to put down men in the process of bringing them up. And I'll give you a couple of examples. There was an example on her talk show where she mentions it was Women's Day. And I'm sorry, women, I don't know what day that falls on. But don't be mad, because I'm sure I'm going to tell you something in this story that I didn't know either. But she mentioned Women's Day, and she goes, yeah, it's Women's Day. And then she mentions how it's not it's only recognized in 24 countries, and America is not one of them. And then she says that, oh, men out there are just thinking that why do women have their own day? Why don't men have their own day? And then she drops knowledge and says, well, man, you do have your own day. It's November 19th, I believe, something like that. And that's the part I was talking about. I didn't know men had a day. I didn't know that. To me, that's stupid, but I'll get to that also. And, she jokes and says, yeah, well, you didn't know that because you're too busy celebrating it every other day of the year. And it's like, oh, again, it maybe if the comedy was delivered properly and it was in good taste, but her delivery and how, maybe it just is all the delivery, but her facial expressions and the demeanor in which she says it, it doesn't come off as someone who really cares about what she's stating, and more so almost wants to say what she believes needs to be said. Like if she started a long time ago to be the face of a movement or to be a big part of women's rights and equality, and she just couldn't turn back from that. So then she turned it into overdrive. But again, there's people out there that can do more harm than good, and I believe that she's one of them. And simply because of the fact that she's trying to bring down all men. It's not a racial thing, but she does attack white men more, and she brings them down in order to bring up women, which doesn't make zero sense to me because it just contradicts your whole thing of what you're trying to say. And then she compares it later in that skit. She compares it. She says that we share a day with the toilet. It's toilet day also on Men's Day, and she makes a comment of both days make sense because they're geared towards a bunch of white Johns. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. And for those of you that don't know, her show got canceled, which I'm like, you know what? It's unfortunate. You don't wish that upon anybody, but at the same time, it's like, man, this is going to be good for women. Because let's face it, they gave the wrong woman a chance, I feel. There's so many other women that could have done late night shows, and they gave the wrong one their chance. And that might have put a bad taste in people's mouths about late night. So who knows how long it would be before we see another woman be a late night talk show host. I don't know. Again, I think you chose the wrong one. I think she ruined it for women for a while. And I hope I'm wrong, because I don't wish that, I hope that Ellen DeGeneres, let's take Ellen for example. Everyone loves Ellen. It's because she's genuine and she's just very likable. So she has comedy, she has humor, but the way in which she delivers it is within means. And I just feel like, you put a YouTuber on television and they still have that YouTube mentality. And it just goes to show you the difference in you creating your own content and then being on television. I don't know if it was live. I couldn't give you that information, but I can tell you this, that when you can make edits to your clips, you can sound a whole lot professional. Anyone can. But when you're just straight shooting, oh man, it starts to show how if you don't have it before you go up there, you're not going to find it while you're in the middle of it. And her monologues were that. And a lot of times, like I said, it was just about putting men down and in hopes of empowering women. And then they would always pan into the audience, and there'd be mainly females, and there'd be some guys, right? But I'm thinking, I was like, this is what I thought. Your demographic is women, so you're already alienating men. Why would you do that? Why would you alienate 50% of your audience? But whatever, if you think that's a successful formula, go for it. But then you weren't getting people to show up to your shows. So then NBC started paying people to go to your show. And then there have been a couple of people that come out on YouTube talking about what it was like to be at a live show for Lily Singh and how it was very forced, and they made the audience laugh at the jokes when they weren't funny. They cued everything, which that's television, people do. But let's be honest, when you watch YouTube of a monologue by Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon, doesn't it give you a laugh? You don't need someone to tell you when to laugh. Some of the things they say is funny. Most of the stuff they do on their show is funny. That's why they are where they are. But Lily Singh, everything was being forced. And again, going back to equality, the majority of your audience is women, and there's certain men. I think men that were there more so because I feel that there are a lot of people out there that don't say their true feelings of how they feel about a bunch of these movements. And women's rights, I think that a lot of men don't really understand what it would mean if women were equal to men. And I think that men out there do. And I feel like that's why there are men out there that don't fully agree with it, because of the fear that maybe they'll be exposed for, again, I say this, I think women are smarter than men. You know what I'm saying? So the fact that women could make more or take men's jobs, I think scares certain people. When I thought it was all about credentials. You know what I'm saying? Like, if it's about credentials, then let the credentials speak for themselves. Male, female, doesn't matter. But going back to what I was saying with the audience member, the guys being there, I feel like the guys that are there are more so there because they feel that that's a way of showing it. It's almost like they're forcing, like they're trying to be seen and say, look, I support the movement. When either A, they don't, or B, they're only doing it because that's what's popular. That's the vibe that I got. I could be wrong. There could be Lily Singh fans out there that wanted to go see her, but I didn't see that from the videos they show when they pan to the audience. It didn't look like they were enjoying themselves, like they were there for the love of Lily. It seemed like they were there because they were with their girlfriends, honestly. But anyway, the second part of that is you want to preach equality. And I mentioned that she puts men down in order to bring women up. And then she brags about how I have all female writers. And I don't know if that is the reason why. I feel like hosts have control of everything. So your writers write something, you can decide if you like it or not. But then I also feel like hosts will have their writers tailor jokes to them. So I don't blame the writers for a lot of these sexist and bad taste jokes and the comedy that's being told, because at the end of the day, Lily approves it. And I feel like they're just trying to tailor it to her. At the same time, because it's all women, I don't think that there's a men's perspective there in order for them to someone outside of there saying, hey, look, I don't think this is why we should say this, and here's why. This is how we might come off. And it's not about silencing women, because I know there's going to be people out there who say, well, now you're saying we need to. No, I'm not saying that. But there's a reason why in a jury trial, they bring different individuals into a trial, because you need those different perspectives, because you're about to make a serious decision. You're about to put someone in jail or not, but you have to decide on someone's life. In her case, she's putting things out for the public. So you're putting her life on the line, because if it doesn't work out, she gets fired. You lose the show, and your life too, because you lose the show and your job is gone. So it's a full wheel. But I think that's why you need that outsider's perspective in order to really give of like, hey, how it can come off. If you have all men somewhere, you can say something. And if it's like an A-type man where they have this one particular joke in mind, they can come off the same way. That would be a bad idea. But if you have different kind of men or different kind of women, or you mix them together, I think that's where you can find that medium of comedy and the good taste, the stuff in good taste. And so I just didn't agree with the fact that you have all women writing. Now, if James Corden, Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, Conan O'Brien, if they all had women writers, and they say, yeah, I have all women writers, I honestly think that it would be fine. Fine. I don't think anyone would have a problem with it. But the fact that it's Lily, and Lily has come out and bashed men, white men mostly, to bring women up, then you start to say, okay, well, now you're sexist because you are only employing women? Where's the equality in that? Oh, well, it's hard for women writers to find jobs in Hollywood. I'm sure that's true. And I can see that, and no one's saying not to hire women writers, but I don't think that even if that was the case, I don't think I would tell the public that I have all women writers if I were her, because of her stance and because of the contradiction it would present if she were to say that. But she had no problem, and she said it. She said it, and she's had no problems. The other things that really bother me about her are, again, it's almost like her, I don't know if it's activist work or what, but in the highest paid YouTuber stars of 2018, Forbes magazine, that article came out. And in 2016, there was women on it. And in 2017, Lily was on it. She was the only one. But in 2018, there was no women on it. 0 women. And this is what she tweeted. She said, 2 years ago, it was almost even between male and female. Last year, it was just me. And this year, there's no females at all. Something I predicted in my Instagram caption last year. I'm concerned the digital space is going to repeat itself. I'm concerned the digital space is going to repeat the mistakes of ancient industries. Hope I'm wrong. And then she lists it. And she got a lot of hate for that. And let me say this. What the fuck are you talking about? That is not a sexist list. This is a list based on earnings. Highest earnings for a YouTuber. Numbers. Women lie, men lie. Women lie, men lie. Numbers don't lie. I don't know if you guys remember that song, but it's the truth. Numbers don't lie. Facts. Fucking facts. But what? That's sexist. What? That makes zero sense. If you didn't make as much money as the next person and they're on that list and they were number 10, guess what? You didn't make the list because it's all about earnings. And again, she got a bunch of hate for it. And this is what she said. I tweeted about seeing no women on the YouTube's Forbes list. And as a result, I received some angry tweets from men. Remind me why you are mad again? I'm not playing a quote unquote gender card. I am literally stating facts about results in an article. Let's do better. I'm not your enemy, X. Which is funny because she said it right there. I'm literally stating facts. So is Forbes. But you were getting mad about it. You're crying about not being on the list. It's not about women. It's about you. You humble brag all the time about how you do this, how you do that, how you do this. The second part of it, and here's the thing that I think even escalates and add things to it, is the fact that she is a bisexual woman. So she's come out and stated, I'm a bisexual woman of color, which she's very proud of. And I'm not too familiar with the Indian culture, so I don't know how well that goes over. You know, that could be a tough thing to be able to come out as bisexual in a culture like that, you know, because I know like in other cultures, it's a no-no, you know, and it could be like that. It could be intense or it could not be. I'm not sure, so I won't speak on that part. But I have no problem with the fact that you came out as bisexual. That's fine, you know, but I don't understand one thing that you guys are, I'm not sure if you guys are aware of, but that's another thing she would always state in her monologue. And I never understood why she always had to shove that down our throats. And I always felt like there was an agenda hidden behind it. I really did. I really believe that her whole bisexual woman of color and woman, first woman to be on late night, and especially Indian woman, I feel as though that was a YouTube mentality of her that needed to hashtag humble brag. And I'm doing that in air quotes. Because bragging's bragging. But again, if you're just kind of stating something sometimes it can not come off as a brag. When she says it, it comes off as bragging. And it almost seems like she wants to almost show you, kind of put herself at the bottom to show you how far she's come. So you can give her more praise and throw more money at her. And I say that because of what PewDiePie stated. But again, your story is great on its own. Stand alone, your story's great. Why the fuck do you feel like you need to add more emphasis and add racism and sexism to your stuff? It just doesn't make sense to me. And a lot of that, I think, just have to do with being woke, as they say, like legit, or being too woke, as they say. A lot of times, I think messages go over people's heads. because it's not about the message anymore. It's about the movement. Am I a part of it? Yes or no? Like political, are you Republican, Democrat? You get looked bad if you're on the other side. So you lose vision on what the whole movement was about, because now you're just playing sides. It's so stupid. It's fucking stupid. But this is what PewDiePie said. He said, maybe this is a crazy idea, but maybe you should plan a campaign or something like that to increase your revenue. And then he goes on to say something about mental health. Oh, okay. He said this. I'm sorry. Let me rewind. He said, also took a jab at her recent decision to take a break from making videos to focus on her mental health. So he took a jab at that. He said something about mental health and then just come back and sell a bunch of merch afterwards. He continued, that would be a great idea. Maybe that would help you earn more revenue. And I really do believe he was talking smack in the terms of, because YouTubers know YouTubers. They've done YouTube rewinds together. You get an idea of how to, you probably live within the same community. So you get to hear insides on other YouTubers. Jake Paul, he'll fake videos just to get views, things like that. Like, that's not secret. And maybe PewDiePie's exposing and saying, look, I know what you're about, and all you're about is money. And that's not the case. He goes on to say, I think it's interesting about the whole thing is it's saying that men are being paid more than women in the YouTube space, which is obviously just ridiculous, he said. You don't get paid more or less based on your gender. AdSense pays the same way. If people want to subscribe to you, they generally do it because they enjoy your videos, not because of your gender. That's just ridiculous. But if you start complaining about this, you literally just sound like a crybaby and an idiot, which you are Lily Singh, just in case you weren't sure. Which is true. And I think that last part is him saying, like, look, bro, your story, you know who you are. Anything you say is going to be public, but your story is good alone. You don't need to go that route, because now you are coming off as you're whining. I don't get it. Oh, man. Let's see. Lily Singh goes out to say, shouts out to everyone who uses their voice and influence to spread love, acceptance, and inclusion. I understand that it is a choice. You could just as easily be mean, spirited, and hateful. I appreciate you for making that choice. I know there's a little point in clarifying anything on the internet, but in my heart, I feel I do want to clarify the following, because I believe true feminism is a conversation led with compassion and understanding. It's a conversation for everyone. A few days ago, I tweeted about 0 women being on the Forbes list. My concern wasn't me not being on the list. I likely don't deserve to be on the list this year, to be honest. I've had a tough year. I know that. My concern was no female representation. And by pointing out that concern, I am not attacking the men on the list. They should be proud of their accomplishments. Even the few who have not, be fond of me. Secure your bag, my friend. Nor am I attacking Forbes or YouTube. I am simply pointing out a concern culturally, a cultural pattern / trend that I see within the industry. And as a woman, and honestly, just as a human being, I feel it's important to be concerned about patterns like this. So, to everyone who is down to have a conversation about this with insightful thoughts, let's do it. But to everyone tweeting me saying, maybe girls just don't make good content. Oh, see, that's a little rough. Hit me up when you're ready to exchange meaningful dialogue. And if standing up for my fellow women / sisters makes me a target for attack, then I'll learn to live with that. I say this with love in my heart and a smile on my face. 0 desire to create drama. I love my mind too much for that. Okay, now if people were saying maybe women just don't make the same kind of content, depending on how that was said, because again, it could just be genuine, someone saying that maybe, or someone just being spiteful. But that is a little rough. When I read it, I'm like, oh man, see, now we're going backwards. Because realistically, it goes down to numbers. Like you said, AdSense pays the same. Doesn't matter, male or female. It's just about your content. And the longer your videos, the more ads you can put in there, so the more money you can make. For a lot of you guys that don't know that. A lot of people want to do YouTube videos and make them under 10 minutes. Under 10 minutes, you put 1 ad. And a lot of times, well, that doesn't pay that much. But imagine putting 2 ads. Now you double your revenue. And all you have to do is make the video a little bit longer, over 10 minutes. Now you continue to make that longer, people might make more money. And if you can keep people engaged for a longer time, great. That means you're putting out good content. You got a good following. People enjoy what you're putting out. Because the big thing nowadays is people have X million amount of subscribers, but in the hundreds of thousands of views only. And it just goes to show you that people are very liberal with that subscribe button. But your true fans are the people who actually watch your videos. So it becomes more about your views nowadays as opposed to how many subscribers you have. And so that's why you hear people talking about hitting that bell notification, is because they feel it. You know, they feel it. They see it, that they have 2 million subscribers, but only managed to get 80,000 views per video. That's a big gap. But in her case, she can't argue that she's not making that content. I don't know how she had a rough year, but here's the thing too, is that the other side of it is this year, that year that she was doing that, she was doing a book. She was doing some movie stuff, I believe, and I think she was prepping for this show. So you take away the ability to make that money for YouTube. Of course, you weren't on the list. But it almost comes off as, because I'm not on the list, I'm going to talk about it, and then I'm just going to include my fellow women because I speak for women around the world. Like, that's not how it works. I'm sorry. And I didn't see anyone else complaining about it, because I think people understand that there's men that didn't make this list either. So there's probably transgender people that didn't make the list. So what? If they're not selling, or if they don't have the viewership or the following, how can you put them on a list that's based on numbers? That's what I don't get. You turn it into this gender thing. You turn it into something, and women, little girls especially, this is the representation or the example they're getting from you. It just doesn't make sense. She says one more thing. She goes, "Hey, at PewDiePie, I just followed you. Please follow me back again so I can DM you. Speak soon, hopefully." I don't know what that was about. But again, it doesn't make any sense to me as to why you would complain about something that's about numbers. Yeah, she's full of controversy. And then I mentioned earlier how people will get behind movements and lose sight. And then I made the joke about, like, boys, girls, white people, everyone else. You know, and I say that, one, jokingly, because that's the kind of humor she has. Which, again, if it's done in good taste, it's funny. But here's my big thing. And here's the thing that really pisses me off. I told my buddy this. I said, there are two groups that have been two people. We'll say two, not two individual people, but two groups of people that have been just gone through the worst parts of earth and back. You know, gone through hell and back since the beginning of time. One, and I think that's proven, Jewish people. That's one. And two, minorities, in specific, Black people, African Americans. I don't want to say African Americans, Black people, because people also in Europe, you know. But I feel like those have been the two most persecuted groups of people in the history of the world. I could be wrong, but let me just give you my opinion, and then you can correct me later if you want. Nothing is going to change until we stop identifying ourselves or our group of people, our people, in statements. And I remember I was watching, I don't know what I was watching. I was watching something, but I just kept thinking to myself, I think that any kind of person of color, and again, we're talking mainly about Black people, that are on television, you hear a lot of the times whenever they get a TV slot, they'll talk about helping out the communities and things of that nature. And then they reference, you know, people within their own community. And I've heard people say, well, why do they got to separate it? And that's part of de problem, and whoop-de-whoop, right? And I halfway agree with that. But this is my response to that. How do you know that Hollywood isn't creating that divide? Because that's where I put the blame. I put it on Hollywood execs and people of the network if I bring someone on, like, let's say Alicia Keys, I bring Alicia Keys on and I want her to talk about something. I feel like the network and the execs are bringing Alicia Keys, a Black woman, to talk about the Black culture and the issues going on within that community. So if I bring her on to talk about her specific community, is that fair to say why do Black people have to come on and only include their communities? Why can't we just be all people kind of thing? No, because you don't know where the misleading lies. You don't know if it's the execs bringing them in for that specific reason. You know, I say Black people because they don't bring Irish people, but Mexican people, which I am, they do that. They'll bring Mexican people on and they'll talk about the Mexican community. They'll talk about immigration rights and things like that. Is that racist? Or is that, you know what I'm saying? Like, is that wrong on their part? How do you know it's not the execs that are creating this agenda for them to go out there and talk about those communities, their own communities? So that bothers me. Now you fast forward to Colin Kaepernick. And I don't know if I've ever talked. I mean, I did. I spoke about Colin Kaepernick in one of the very, very first episodes of the podcast. You guys won't see those episodes because I initially released them on SoundCloud. And when I canceled my SoundCloud account, I lost them. I have the audio. If you guys want them, I'll slowly release them on my new media host site, and it'll be everywhere. But I think you'll see like from 12 on or something like that. And this is episode 52. But here's how I feel about Colin Kaepernick. For those of you that don't know, he spoke to someone on the team that was a veteran, that was actively serving. I say veteran, that's kind of contradicting. I believe he was actively serving. Either way, he spoke to, and then there was someone else, a couple other people he spoke to that were veterans. And he said he wanted to protest during a game, before the game. He didn't know how to do it in a respectful manner. He said, how can I do it? How can I do it to where it doesn't disrespect anybody? And what did they say? He said, what did he say? Should I not? It was something to do with the national anthem, obviously. And he said, no, that's disrespectful. He said, if you're going to do anything, kneel. Because we kneel when our fallen comrades go down to honor them. So you're not disrespecting anyone. You're still honoring the flag, but you're taking a stand by kneeling. So he did his research. He did what he needed to do. And he took the proper steps and say, okay, look, I want to do this right. I don't want to come off in some type of way because I'm not. Now I respect Colin Kaepernick for that. And there was a couple other people within the NFL community that would also take knees. And they're, still in the NFL or back in the NFL. And Colin isn't. Colin essentially ruined his career to take a stand. He took a knee to take a stand. And I love that because he sacrificed millions. Oh, but Tenna, he got $2.5 million from his Nike deal. $2.5 million from his Nike deal compared to what a quarterback's getting paid now in a quarterback starving NFL. So he's giving that kind of money up, for which I'm going to correct you on that to begin with, because when he did it, that Nike deal didn't come until last year. So what? So he had no idea he was going to make a Nike deal. He had no idea he was going to get money from this. He was willing to put his career on the line and end his career to take a stand for what he believed in. Now, there was a lot of distractions along the way. And here's where my point that I'm getting to by bringing up Colin Kaepernick. People started to say, not Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. And Black people took offense to that. I took offense to that. I think it was a minority thing. And I try to explain to people and they don't see it. But I said, this whole all lives matter thing makes it where now you want to be included in it. It almost feels like, and this is, I'm going to say it, but don't put too much weight to it. It's almost like the N-word. Why people want to say it so bad? So bad. They just want to be a part of that. Whatever they think that quote unquote is, they want to be a part of it. So they want to say it. I feel like almost in a sense the same thing. Black people were starting to get a movement with some traction, and white people wanted to be a part of it. So what did they do? Oh, not Black Lives Matter. You're segregating. All lives matter. No, My dude, you're segregating. You've been segregating. Let me have this. And you know why? Because the whole Black Lives Matter thing is about police brutality within the Black community. My dude, are you Black? Nope. And shut the hell up. All lives matter. Of course, all lives matter. It's not the point. The point is by you erasing my hashtag and putting all lives matter, now you're distracting from the true cause and you're taking away from the movement of Black Lives Matter. And the cause and the attention should be there's violence from police in the Black community. Instead, you're turning into an all lives matter thing. Now you're saying that, oh, Black people are doing this and we can't be included. All lives matter. Doesn't matter. It's not just you. Guess what? You're not having the issues that Black people are having and minorities are having within their communities. Shut the fuck up. Seriously. You're taking away from the movement and you're becoming a distraction. And that is the whole point, I think. I think that's something planted to distract from the Black Lives Matter movement. And I think that Colin Kaepernick, what people made him out to be, is the same thing. Colin Kaepernick was taking a knee to bring awareness to that violence within his community. And people turned it into a circus. Oh, he's taking a knee. He's disrespectful, this and that. Guess what? Now we don't look at Colin Kaepernick. Well, at least some people. I don't look at him like, I look at him for what he stood for. But some people don't look at Colin Kaepernick and say he stood for just equal rights. Treat me right. Stop abusing me because of my skin color. People look at him and say, oh, Colin Kaepernick, the guy who took a knee, the guy who disrespected the military. Now you're creating this narrative when that wasn't even the case. Took the right steps, did it for good cause, and then you flipped it. You found a way to flip it. And then you said they were segregating. You said Black people in the Black community was segregating. No. Like, come on. If there's a something movement for a specific gender, a specific demographic, a specific race, you can't include yourself in that if you're not a part of that race, that demographic, that gender. I'm sorry, it doesn't happen that way. You can't do it. I know people speak on abortions that are male. I get that. But I think some things are different. Men are a part of making babies. So then maybe they're wanting to say too. Maybe that's what it is. There's no Black, and let me tell you this, there's no white person that lives in a Black community that's hashtagging all lives matter. I'll tell you that right now. So don't even start with that argument. Don't say, well, white people can live in the Black community and get attacked and abused or whatever too. Yes, you're 100% right. Yes, they can. But I'll tell you what, they ain't hashtagging all lives matter to that shit. Because they understand. They see it. You don't. Sit down. Like Eddie Murphy said, have a Coke, or wait, it was Richard Pryor. He said, have a Coke and shut the fuck up. That was what bothered me. Because people want to make that comparison. And then fast forward now to the Me Too movement. Oh yeah, we're touching on that. The thing that bothers me about the Me Too movement, again, all these movements, there's been so many distractions to take away from the initial movement. Harvey Weinstein just got convicted, so he's going to prison. So good for Rose McGowan for standing up and others who did so. But what bothers me about that, I don't know who decided to do this, but I thought the Me Too movement stood for My Voice Matters Too, which I know is mainly women, because they were getting raped or whatever. I'm sorry. I don't want to dismiss it like that. That's not what I meant by whatever. I apologize. That came off really disrespectful. What I meant was they don't want to be raped. They don't want to be violated. They don't want anything to happen without their consent. That's what I meant. I should have said etc. My apologies. But I agree. I think as a guy, if you're going to do anything to women without her consent, you're a piece of shit. Like, you're a piece of shit. Like when you hear people roofing people, like that's sad. At the same time, don't leave your drinks, women. Don't leave your drinks everywhere. Women, men, come on. It's not just leave our drinks everywhere. I know we're drunk and having a good time, but don't leave your drinks everywhere because then you're susceptible to getting roofied. It's just gonna happen eventually. But what I didn't like about that, because I agree 100% with the Me Too movement. I think I've made it clear how I feel about it. But there was an incident with I believe it was Adam Sandler's manager, where he groped Terry Crew. For those of you who don't know who Terry Crew is, he's a big muscular guy, hands out cheeseburgers in The Longest Yard, the remake with Adam Sandler. He is a sergeant in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And he's also the big buff black guy that loves white chicks in White Chicks. That's Terry Crew. So they were at a party, a Hollywood party. And I'm going to tell you like a full story because I had this discussion with a friend of mine. But they were at a Hollywood party. Excuse me. And the manager, just as they're walking by, or I think he was grabbing some appetizers, he groped them. He grabbed his nuts or his dick or whatever, one of the two. I don't know what he grabbed. But he definitely groped him. And Terry Crew was like, what the hell? And people look at someone like Terry Crew and see the muscular guy and think, okay, well, why didn't he knock him out? Why didn't he do this? Whoop-de-whoop. And here's what I told my buddy. I said, he was at a Hollywood party. It's no secret that the execs that run Hollywood are majority white, that have that power. Now, on the exterior, Terry Crew might look like this big, buff, black, muscular guy, but what's the key thing I just said in there? He's black. Imagine how uncomfortable that might have been and how nervous he might have felt that he got groped and probably had the thought is, I can't say anything because if I do, Hollywood will cancel me and I will never, my livelihood, how I pay rent, how I feed my family is gone. So I think he made the conscious decision and at the time not doing anything to that guy. Because yeah, he could have easily crushed him. But it's sad. So you put yourself, how many women have felt as though they couldn't speak up because no one would believe them, or they couldn't speak up because they were afraid to lose something? Sounds pretty common to what rape victims go through. And so I would definitely categorize Terry Crew as part of that. And he did. He told his story as part of the Me Too movement. He told his story. And here's the twist. Here's what made me mad. Women of the Me Too movement didn't identify Terry Crew as a part of the movement because he had been raped or groped. They instead turned the narrative and said that Terry Crews supports the Me Too movement with his story. And that's what I'm talking about. It's not a gender-specific thing. Guys can get raped too. Look at Terry Crew. He's bigger than most of us. And if it happened to him, obviously it can happen to anyone. My point is, how can someone be a part of something and he is telling a story to add to the movement, but be a part of it? Not to show his support for a movement of women being raped, because that's not what it is. Me Too is about anyone who gets raped. Now you can say, oh, well, men are just trying to include themselves in it. I don't feel as that's the case. And that's not my argument. My argument is if that a male gets molested and he but he is a part of the Me Too movement as a victim, not as a supporter, because it's a woman's thing. That's not how it should be. And too many times, I think these hashtags start off with good intent and then they just kind of tail off. And then they get really diluted and saturated with people who woke trolls, I call them, who think who don't even understand it, but will support it just because, again, it's about what side are you on. It's not about what you believe. It's about what side are you on. And if you're on that side, then we're gonna have an argument or whatever. There's no healthy debates anymore. So I don't feel like that's something that would have happened. But my point is that the movements that go on need We can support them by hashtagging and by bringing awareness. But if we're not a part of it, don't try to be a part of it. Don't include yourself in as a victim when you don't understand the consequences or the actions to your actions. All Lives Matter is distracting from the real violence in the Black community. So don't do that. Don't do that. And I'll end with this. I want to end on something positive. I'm going to try to do my best. I don't really know exactly what I'm going to say, but I want to touch on the fact that I want to be very clear. I think what Lilly Singh has accomplished is amazing. To be a content creator on YouTube, successful, to have the following that she does, and to be a woman of color, as she says, on late night, and is also bisexual. That's awesome. But I think that she should have used her platform. I feel as though you're like when you're a kid and you get something, you eat the whole thing instead of savoring it. And I think that's kind of what happened. As I don't think she had confidence in herself to understand that she could have really done something good with this. And maybe she felt like she would get canceled. I don't know how she felt. This is just my assumption. But I think that the people around her should have been a better support system and letting her know what was going on and how some of the things that she was saying she could have done without bashing another group of people. But her story is great. So for anyone out there who is feeling conflicted with certain movements, I say do your research before you speak up. Before you put yourself out there on the internet, because you never know who's watching or who's listening or who's reading. You can go viral like that. A lot of people try to do it for the wrong reasons. And I think that's the problem. But I said it on one of my last podcasts. I think now is the time to be on social media because the energy and the love is just that. It's just love. It's positivity. It's amazing. America really bonds together in a crisis. It just sucks that it takes a crisis for people to bond together. But please do your research on the movements before you decide to speak out or speak up. And please understand what your actions can cause if you're going to try to distract from those movements, because you are affecting the victims of those movements. You take a shot of Me Too, you're essentially taking a shot of all those women who are afraid to speak up because of people like you. And now that they have spoken up, we're turning a blind eye to it. Black Lives Matter. It's one thing to take a shot at Colin Kaepernick for his football play, because I do that. Anyone does that. That's fair game. But to take a shot at him for what he believes in, because it doesn't suit your narrative or your belief, I think you need to look in the mirror and realize what you're doing or not doing. And I think you'll start to realize that maybe Colin's a little braver than you, the fact that he's willing to risk it all, everything, for what he believes in. And I don't see how you can't have respect for a man like that. So for everyone out there, thank you guys for listening. We appreciate you guys. Continue to follow the podcast, Culture Punch Podcast. That's our Instagram and Facebook. Culture_punch for Twitter. This was maybe a controversial one. I know a lot of you won't agree or disagree one way or the other. But I really would like to know what you guys think. And I'd love to hear you guys' opinion on it. And like I said, we'll go from there. So thank you guys. You guys take care, and we will be back with another episode soon.